Good morning. Today's topic, empaths and energy vampires. There's more and more talk out there I've noticed about this dynamic that happens between people who are empathic and pick up other people's emotions and people who are narcissistic and draw on other people's energies for their own well-being. For instance, energy vampires tend to be people who want they're getting their needs met. Let me just fix that. They want to be taken care of emotionally, sometimes physically, sometimes. But the basic idea is that the focus of the relationship is on them. The energy of the relationship goes towards them. They're not very good at caretaking others, at being there for others emotionally or physically or in whatever way. And in some cases, along the spectrum of narcissism and energy vampirism, they can even not really be as aware that other people are real in a way as an empath tends to be. In other words, other people's feelings and reality and experiences and perceptions are not as real or valid to them as their own. They will classically project that onto you as an empath. A narcissist will say, here's what's going on for you, or here's what you're feeling, or here's what you should be doing or should be thinking, without actually reflecting on whether that's right for you, or how you feel about it, or that kind of thing. So that's just kind of a quick background to the dynamic that we're talking about. And can you see how narcissists and empaths kind of end up in this symbiotic or parasitic relationship where, because an empath feels what other people are feeling, not just, having sympathy for it or understanding of it or that kind of thing, but actually feeling within our own bodies what someone else is feeling. So empaths tend to be caretaking and rescuing type personalities, because if you're hurting, I can't feel good. You know what I mean? If someone around us is in pain, we are in pain. So what we tend to try to do, especially in the early stages, before we're even aware that we're an empath, we take on this trait where we try to fix and rescue and help others so that we can, feel better and not have this burden of somebody else's pain on us. In the beginning, we may not even be conscious that that's what's going on, or that's what we're doing, or what's motivating our what could be perceived as altruism, but in fact isn't quite altruistic, because we need the other person to be fixed. We need the other person to feel better so that we can feel better. It's not entirely even about the other person. And that's classic rescuing behavior, right? So, empaths tend to be rescuers, and narcissists, energy vampires, tend to want to be taken care of, want other people to do their work for them. It's easy to see, I think, how those two traits, personalities, can just be drawn to each other magnetically, like an orbit around each other. And it can be very difficult to break free of that pattern because in many ways it's very deeply satisfying on a subconscious level and even a physical level to both parties. However, understand that that can only go so far. An energy vampire is an endless pit of need. And they will suck an empath dry, you know? And it's often not until that point that we even notice there's a problem, perhaps on either side. I think empaths are more likely to notice the problem than narcissists because empaths are being drained emotionally and energetically by caring for this other person who's just an endless hole of need in a way. And eventually that takes its toll and you just don't feel like you have more to give. Narcissists, on the other hand, are getting fed by that relationship, so it's less likely for them to become aware that it's a problem. Whew. So actually where I'm going with this is, I mean, there's so much talk about this these days, which is really great. It's wonderful that we're getting more awareness of this and it's becoming more conscious, this pattern. And at the same time, do you see that there is a blame dynamic that's kind of going on with that? Empaths are resenting energy vampires because they're feeling used, and, you know, rightfully so on one level. But on another level, the empath has willingly entered into that relationship because it's feeding them as well. And here's something that doesn't get talked about very often. Empaths tend to be energy vampires. Energy vampires tend to be empathic. And if that sounds contradictory or paradoxical, it kind of is. But here's what happens. Empaths are, I mean, I'm assuming a level of somewhere on the development of awareness of an empath, because in the beginning, we're not even aware we're empathic. We don't even understand that other people don't feel that or can't perceive truth and lies in other people and stuff. We just think that's normal. And so we get a little bit more consciousness maybe as we go along, and eventually we are able to function very well and very consciously with our empathic skills being a benefit instead of a liability, which they can very often seem, especially in the early stages. So before we've reached the level where we're really aware of how to work in the most positive way as an empath, we tend to not see our own emotions as clearly as we see others. We tend to be more aware of other people's needs than our own. And there's sort of this sideways version of getting our own needs met by trying to meet other people's needs and then feeling better vicariously. Can you imagine how well that's going to work after a while? You're on a constant treadmill of trying to make everyone around you happy, and you've attracted people who are never going to be satisfied or have enough of your caretaking to feel that on their own, because they're in this dynamic where they need you to do that for them. So we end up not getting our needs met, but we keep trying to meet them outside of ourselves. And that's the key. Empaths tend to want to fix outside of themselves, be aware of energy and emotions outside of themselves, rather than our own, and addressing our own directly. And that's the difference. And that's that slippery, slidey area where an empath can actually become an energy vampire. because we need other people's well-being to make us well. So we're in essence, we can be like vacuuming off other people's well-being and energy in order to make us feel better. Do you see that there's this kind of energy leakage going both ways in an empath working without conscious awareness? And, you know, I think some of the most empathic people I know are also really energy vampires in their own way and their own right, taking energy from one person and pouring it into another person and just becoming, in a way, this conduit of energy flowing through without ever being fully present with what's going on inside here and dealing with it directly. So that's why I think it's really important to address this idea of blaming either side of the equation, really, but we tend to blame the energy vampires because they're getting the most benefit out of the relationship. So what do you do when you're also the energy vampire in a different way? It's not so easy to blame, is it? We have to actually take responsibility. And how that looks is like a beneficial, a positive expression of being empathic is by starting with awareness inside ourselves, bringing our attention to our own emotions and our own needs and our own experiences and healing them from the inside out. And in like one basic step of that is learning to distinguish what's somebody else's emotion or what's coming from an energy field outside and what's actually our own, coming from our inside of ourselves. And that's a topic that's far too long to go into at this moment. But another key is learning to not only distinguish what's ours and what's not, but learning how to address our own needs and fulfill our own needs from within ourselves. So if someone else is having a bad day, not taking it on, having a clearer, stronger energy barrier or shield or boundary, so that we're not as permeable to everybody else's stuff, so that we and then when we take it on, even when we do take it on, so this is, I guess, number 3. 1 is awareness, 2 is boundaries, energy boundaries, and 3 is when we do take it on, we process it in ourselves before we even think about trying to fix someone else. If someone else is sad and we are feeling that, we need to go and deal with our own emotion of sadness. Because we're not going to really pick up on it if it's not something that we have somewhere inside of ourselves. That's a little complex, and it's not as simple as I've just made it sound. But essentially, if it comes up in us, if we feel it for whatever reason, we have to go and deal with it ourselves and not just try to fix it from outside. And whatever our emotions are, we need to learn to fix them from inside of ourselves, whether they're ours or someone else's. We have to do the work, the inner work, before we can start looking outside and doing work outside, even when it's helping others. And that can be a really tough thing for empaths to let go of. Helping others is really key to our way of being and often our self-identity. Like, who would we be if we stopped caring so much about other people and helping other people all the time, even to the detriment of ourselves? Well, that's a whole other topic. These are all other topics. And I'm over time already, so I will just wrap that up. And let's say that what can our awareness be today? See if you can't. I'm going to do this too. Let's see if we can't be more aware of what's going on inside of ourselves and process that, whatever it is, wherever we're getting it from, if we feel it, processing it within ourselves before we even consider trying to take care of someone else's issues. That's a big challenge. So that should keep us busy, but it's also hopefully a really great consciousness elevating process. It will be very helpful in the long run, I promise. All right, are you ready? Here we go. Have a beautiful, lovely day with it, and good luck. I will talk with you again tomorrow. Blessed be.